Frankenstein has become the most iconic name in horror. Mary Shelley's original novel took the world by storm, and 2 centuries later, still hasn't loosened its grip. Adaptations have been endless. Just this year alone, we've had multiple films and shows either retelling or referencing Shelley's story. Even Tron Legacy has a reference to the novel. Now, I could be lying about that, but you wouldn't know because no one saw that film. And next year, we'll bring Maggie Gyllenhaal's adaptation, The Bride. Clearly, the fascination isn't dying anytime soon. But today, we're talking about the newest take, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein, a film that proudly claims to go back to the novel, diving deep into both the monster and his creator. I was excited. Del Toro tackling one of literature's greatest tragedies? That sounded like a dream. So, I decided to finally read the book beforehand. I'd never read it before, and I figured there was no better time to experience the story that started it all. Well, for this film's sake, I wish I hadn't. Because if I hadn't read the novel, I probably would have liked this film a lot more. You know what they say, ignorance really can be bliss. Because while Frankenstein is visually stunning, it's also a disaster. A hollow, glossy adaptation that completely misses the point. It butchers Shelley's characters, strips away her themes, and replaces philosophical tragedy with a shiny Hollywood spectacle that's all style and no soul. Del Toro tries to distract you with gothic beauty and gory operatic action so you don't notice the story's heart being ripped out right in front of you. Now I know what you're thinking. Here comes another arsehole saying the book did it better. But I love adaptations. They bring classics to new audiences and keeps their stories alive. The key is understanding the heart of what you're adapting. You can change details, even entire subplots, but you have to honour the story's moral backbone. Look at Peter Jackson as an example. His Lord of the Rings trilogy made countless changes, but never once betrayed the spirit of Tolkien. Then look at his Hibberd trilogy, a stretched out, bloated version that lost the book's charm. That's exactly what happened here. Frankenstein doesn't reinterpret the novel, it doesn't understand it. Shelley's existential dread and moral ambiguity are swapped for dull action, shallow characters, and dialogue so on the nose I thought I was getting hit with a hammer. At one point, a character literally says to Victor Frankenstein, "You are the monster." That's the level of subtlety we're working with here. So let's start with the biggest problem. Victor himself. His character is absolutely butchered. In Shelley's novel, Victor Frankenstein is a man destroyed by his own brilliance, a tragic visionary whose obsession with conquering death consumes everything good in his life. It's a riches to rags story in the purest sense. He begins with love, privilege, and promise, and loses it all because he dares to play God. The horror isn't external, it's psychological. It's watching a man unravel under the weight of his ambition, haunted by what he's done. This film throws all of that away. Here, Victor is just a smug prodigy with daddy issues. His torment is reduced to "my father never believed in me," which turns a complex meditation on guilt and moral responsibility into a therapy session from Succession without the writing. Even his family, vital in the novel as the emotional core, here are sidelined into props for resentment. There's no warmth, no tragedy, just endless scowling. And his relationship with the creature is where the misunderstanding really shows. In Shelley's book, Victor is horrified the instant the creature opens its eyes. That shock, that regret, defines him. His horror gives birth to guilt, illness, and paranoia, a psychological spiral Shelley uses to show how obsession fragments the human soul. But in Del Toro's version, Victor actually loves his creation for a while before slowly turning on him, all in service of this clumsy father-son metaphor. It's such a simplified, Hollywood-friendly version of events that it completely undermines Shelley's point. Victor's tragedy isn't that he hates his son, it's that he refuses to take responsibility for him. That moral blindness is what destroys him. But the film would rather have him yell and try and blow him up, because apparently that's easier to shoot than guilt. And Oscar Isaac's performance doesn't help. It's this strange juxtaposition of stiff and theatrical, like he's still playing Apocalypse from that X-Men film. It's not awful, but it's painfully misjudged for a character meant to crumble under his own weight. As for the supporting characters, Christoph Waltz is completely wasted. His role exists purely to explain how Victor can afford his experiments, something the novel never bothered with and never needed to. These long exposition scenes between Victor and Christoph Waltz's character drag the pacing to a crawl and steal time from what should have been the film's emotional centre. Because of that, the third act, arguably the most thematically rich part of Shelley's story, gets compressed into a rushed final 20 minutes. Mia Goth fares better. She plays Victor's emotional foil, questioning his ideology and grounding the story in something human. But even she can't escape the editing. Her arc ends abruptly just before it might get more interesting because the film has too much ground to cover too late. And Victor's brother is reduced to a one-note character that Victor despises. It removes all the familial tragedy that gave the novel its heart. When the family falls apart, you just don't feel it, because Victor doesn't seem to either. Jacob Elordi, on the other hand, is easily the best thing here. His performance as the creature is magnetic, tortured, poetic, and genuinely moving when the script gives him room. I like that they leaned into the novel's description, giving him long black hair instead of the flat top classic look. Because the monster's look has been done to death visually, I like what they did here visually, and they made him hot this time. But even he's trapped by the film's need for constant spectacle. The creature's tragedy, his desperate longing for connection, and the horror of being rejected for what he is, gets drowned out by unnecessary action scenes. There's a whole wolf attack sequence that feels like it exists purely because someone thought, this is getting boring, let's add some action to it. It adds nothing to the story and cheapens what could have been hauntingly intimate moments. Shelley's horror comes from a lack of empathy, not because the monster rips a wolf in half. That pattern repeats across the film. Whenever something could be quiet, eerie, or emotionally raw, the film trades it for an over-the-top set piece. The mysterious, chilling opening of the novel, for example, which builds tension through isolation and dread, is replaced with an action sequence that feels ripped from a Marvel film. Shelley's story was never applauded for action. It is revered for its tragedy. Both are missing here. And that's what makes this film so frustrating. On paper, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein should have been a masterpiece. Gothic atmosphere, practical effects, moral horror. Instead, it's a glossy imitation that mistakes spectacle for soul. It misunderstands not just Victor, but the entire moral weight of Shelley's work. This is the biggest disappointment of the year for me. When I found out that Guillermo del Toro was working on a Frankenstein film, that sounded like an immediate home run for me. But having watched it, it's shocking how the film continues to miss the point of the original text again and again and again. But those are my thoughts. Now I want to hear yours. Have you seen Frankenstein? What did you think? Have I missed something? Let me know down below, and I'll see you all in the next one.